mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, there is a thirst for love which no human relation can quench. It is only the Divine's love that can satisfy that thirst. With my love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo. From the collective works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, Book 24, Synthesis of Yoga, Part 2, page 620, topic, the Yoga of Self-Perfection, subtopic, the Integral Perfection. New stanza. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, a yoga of integral perfection, regards man as a divine spiritual being involved in mind, life, and body. It aims, therefore, at a liberation and a perfection of his divine nature. It seeks to make an inner living in the perfectly developed spiritual being, his constant intrinsic living, and the spiritualized action of mind, life, and body, only its outward human expression. Our Lord says, in order that this spiritual being may not be something vague and indefinable or else, but imperfectly realized and dependent on the mental support and the mental limitations, it seeks to go beyond mind to the supramental knowledge, will, sense, feeling, intuition, dynamic initiation of vital and physical action, all that makes the native working of the spiritual being. It accepts human life but takes account of the large supra-terrestrial action behind the earthly material living, and it joins itself to the divine being from whom the supreme origination of all these partial and lower states proceeds, so that the whole of life may become aware of its divine source and feel in each action of knowledge, of will, of feeling, sense, and body the divine originating impulse. It rejects nothing that is essential in the aim but enlarges it, finds and lives in its greater and truer meaning now hidden from it, transfigures it from a limited, earthly and mortal thinking to a figure of infinite, divine and immortal values. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the integral yoga meets the religious ideal at several points, but goes beyond it in the sense of a greater wideness. The religious ideal looks not only beyond this earth, but away from it to a heaven, or even beyond all heavens to some kind of nirvana. Its ideal of perfection is limited to whatever kind of inner or outer mutation will eventually serve the turning away of the soul from the human life to the beyond. Its ordinary idea of perfection is a religio-ethical change, a drastic purification of the active and emotional being, often with an aesthetic abrogation and rejection of the vital impulses as its completest teaching of excellence, and in any case, a supra terrestrial motive and reward or result of a life of piety and right conduct. In so far as it admits a change of knowledge, will, aesthesis, it is in the sense of the turning of them to another object than the aims of human life, and eventually brings a rejection of all earthly objects of aesthesis, will, and knowledge. The method, whether it lays stress on personal effort or upon divine influence, on works and knowledge or upon grace, is not like the mundane a development, but rather a conversion. But in the end, the aim is not a conversion of our mental and physical nature, but the putting on of a pure spiritual nature and being. Since that is not possible here on earth, it looks for its consummation by a transference to another world or a shuffling off of all cosmic existence. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo continues to say, but the integral yoga founds itself on a conception of the spiritual being as an omnipresent existence, the fullness of which comes not essentially by a transference to other worlds or a cosmic self extinction, but by a growth out of what we now are phenomenally into the consciousness of the omnipresent reality which we always are in the essence of our being. It substitutes for the form of religious piety its completer spiritual seeking of a divine union. It proceeds by a personal effort to a conversion through a divine influence and possession. But this divine grace, if we may so call it, is not simply a mysterious flow or a touch coming from above, but the all-pervading act of a divine presence which we come to know within as the power of the highest self and master of our being, entering into the soul and so possessing it that we not only feel it close to us and pressing upon our mortal nature, but live in its law, know that law, possess it as the whole power of our spiritualized nature. Our Lord says, the conversion of its actions will effect in an integral conversion of our ethical being into the truth and right of the divine nature, of our intellectual into the illumination of divine knowledge, our emotional into the divine love and unity, our dynamic and volitional into a working of the divine power, our aesthetic into a plenary reception and creative enjoyment of divine beauty, not excluding even in the end a divine conversion of the vital and physical being. Our Lord says, it regards all the previous life as an involuntary and unconscious or half-conscious preparatory growing towards this change, and yoga as the voluntary and conscious effort and realization of the change by which all the aim of human existence in all its parts is fulfilled, even while it is transfigured. Admitting the supracosmic truth and life in worlds beyond, it admits too the terrestrial as a continued term of the one existence and a change of individual and communal life on earth as a strain of its divine meaning. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says to open oneself to the supracosmic divine is an essential condition of this integral perfection. Let me repeat. To open oneself to the supracosmic divine is an essential condition of this integral perfection. To unite oneself with the universal divine is another essential condition. Here, the yoga of self perfection coincides with the yogas of knowledge, works, and devotion. For it is impossible to change the human nature into the divine or to make it an instrument of the divine knowledge, will, and joy of existence unless there is a union with the Supreme Being, consciousness, and bliss, and a unity with its universal self in all things and beings. A wholly separative possession of the divine nature by the human individual, as distinct from a self withdrawn absorption in it, is not possible. But this unity will not be an inmost spiritual oneness qualified so long as the human life lasts, but a separative existence in mind, life, and body. The full perfection is a possession through this spiritual unity, of unity too with the universal mind, the universal life, the universal form, which are the other constant terms of cosmic being. Moreover, since human life is still accepted as a self expression of the realized divine in man, there must be an action of the entire divine nature in our life, and this brings in the need of the supramental conversion, which substitutes the native action of the spiritual being for the imperfect action of the superficial nature, and spiritualizes and transfigures its mental, vital, and physical parts by the spiritual ideality. These three elements, a union with the Supreme Divine, unity with the Universal Self, and a supramental life action from this transcendent origin and through this universality, but still with the individual as the sole channel and natural instrument, constitute the essence of integral divine perfection of the human being, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo. Next topic from the same book, Synthesis of Yoga, Part 2, page 752, chapter 16, topic The Divine Shakthi. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the relation between the Purusha and Prakriti, which emerges as one, advances in the yoga of self perfection, is the next thing that we have to understand carefully in this part of the integral yoga. In the spiritual truth of our being, the power which we call nature is the power of the being, consciousness, and will, and therefore the power of self expression and self creation of the self, soul, or Purusha. But to our ordinary mind, in the ignorance and to its experience of things, the force of Prakriti has a different appearance. When we look at it in its universal action outside ourselves, we see it first as a mechanical energy in the cosmos, which acts upon matter or in its own created forms of matter. In matter, it evolves, powers, and processes of life, and in the living matter, powers and processes of mind. Throughout its operation, it acts by fixed laws, and in each kind of created thing displays varying properties of energy and laws of process, which give its character to the genus or species, and again in the individual develops without infringing the law of the kind minor characteristics and variations of a considerable consequence. It is this mechanical appearance of Prakriti which has preoccupied the modern scientific mind and made for it its whole view of nature, and so much so that science still hopes and labors with a very small amount of success to explain all phenomena of life by laws of matter and all phenomena of mind by laws of living matter. Here, soul or spirit has no place, and nature cannot be regarded as a power of spirit, since the whole of our existence is a mechanical, physical, and bounded by the biological phenomenon of a brief living consciousness, and man is a creature, an instrument of material energy. The spiritual self evolution of yoga can only be a delusion, hallucination, abnormal state of mind, or self hypnosis. In any case, it cannot be what it represents itself to be, a discovery of the eternal truth of our being and passing above the limited truth of the mental, vital, and physical to the full truth of our spiritual nature. But when we look not at the external mechanical nature to the exclusion of our personality, but at the inner subjective experience of man, the mental being, our nature takes to us a quite different appearance. We may believe intellectually in a purely mechanical view even of our subjective existence, but we cannot act upon it or make it quite real to our self experience. For we are conscious of an I which does not seem identical with our nature, but capable of a standing back from it, of a detached observation and criticism and creative use of it, and of a will which we naturally think of as a free will. And even if this be a delusion, we are still obliged in practice to act as if we were responsible mental beings capable of a free choice of our actions, able to use or misuse, and to turn to higher or lower ends our nature. And even we seem to be struggling both with our environmental and with our own present nature, and striving to get mastery over a world which imposes itself on and masters us, and at the same time to become something more than we now are. But the difficulty is that we are only in command, if at all, over a small part of ourselves. The rest is subconscious or subliminal and beyond our control. Our will acts only in a small selection of our activities. The most is a process of mechanism, habit, and we must strive constantly with ourselves and the surrounding circumstances to make the least advanced or self amelioration. There seems to be a dual being in us. Soul and nature, Purusha and Prakriti, seem to be half in agreement, half at odds. Nature laying its mechanical control on the soul, and the soul attempting to change and master nature. And the question is, what is the fundamental character of this duality, and what the issue will continue.
आगच्छ वरदे देवी जपो मे सन्निधां भव गायन्तं त्रायते गायत्री त्वमतः स्मृता ॐ सत्यम् ॐ आपो ज्योति रसोऽमृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवः स्वरो ॐ नीलोत्पलदलश्यामं भुजगाभरणोज्ज्वलां शङ्खचक्रधरां देवीं वरदां भयनाशिनीं ॐ सर्वलक्ष्मीमयीं नित्यां श्रीमीरायै नमः श्री